What's going on, guys? Greg here from CARiD.com. Welcome back to the shop, and in today's video I'm working on my Ford Bronco project. Now, if you've been following along in the last video, we've treated the frame with some rust preventative paint, and now that that's all dry, we can finally reassemble the front suspension with our new coil spring towers and skyjacker lift kit. Let's go ahead and get started because we got to get this thing on the ground. All right, guys, the first step in our suspension reassembly is going to be with our radius arm. We're going to install a new bracket and bushings. Now, this has all been disassembled, and I've already cleaned up the radius arm itself with the wire brush. You're going to start by putting this big concave washer on first, then the inner bushing. Make sure that this collar is facing towards the rear of the truck. Then we can take our bracket, slide that over the top, making sure it's flush with the bushing. Then you're going to have a plastic spacer and another bushing that you're going to get installed just like this. Once that's on, ended up with a big washer on the end and our 28mm nut. And I'm just going to leave that on loosely for now. And I'll end up bringing this entire radius arm up, lining it up with the bolts in the frame, and then bolting the bracket on. But I'm going to leave everything loose so I can kind of move the bracket around if necessary. All right, guys, the last thing we got to do is tighten down this massive 28mm nut for the radius arm bushing on the end. We're going to torque this down to 120 foot-pounds once we get it as tight as we can. There she goes. All right, guys, new radius arm bracket and bushing are in. It looks fantastic, and so will our new coil spring tower. Now, unlike the original that was riveted onto the frame, we're gonna end up bolting these on. I wanna make sure everything's gonna line up okay. It looks great. Now it's just a matter of getting some bolts ready, and if you have an assistant or somebody to give you a hand, it'll make it a lot easier. All right, with our new tower in place, we can install our skyjacker lift coils. I'll bring this as low as we possibly can. Off we go. Perfect. All right, guys, the driver's side suspension is pretty much finished up. New coil spring towers in place, skyjacker coil spring, skyjacker shock, but this truck came equipped with quad shocks, and I got the exact same coil spring tower to accept the quad shock. Problem being is I can't install them because the lower shock mount for the quad shock has snapped off, which is exactly why when I bought this truck, it only had one of them installed. So we need to address that. Now, you can get this entire bracket for this truck to replace this whole mount, but really there's nothing wrong with the mount, and there's no reason to go ahead and take all of this apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off and replace it with this universal lower shock mount from Dorman. These things are great. It's really easy to install. We're going to cut the old mount off, drill a hole in the bracket, and then put this through, thread this in, and we'll have a shock mount for our new quad shock. All right, guys, it took a little bit of cutting, grinding, and drilling, but we got the old lower shock stud cut off, a new hole drilled, and now we're going to be using our universal shock mount from Dorman. Pretty easy. That's going to feed through the hole, washer on the back side, and this is a great solution for issues like this because it avoids you having to take apart and replace this entire bracket. Now, what's really nice about this Dorman kit is that it comes with new lower shock bushings if you need them. Ours, we don't though, because it already came with some. There it goes. And it's worth noting, guys, this is a great solution if you have broken quad shocks on your Bronco, because that bottom universal stud is literally like $6. It doesn't get any cheaper than that. All right, guys, the entire front suspension has been reassembled on my Bronco, and look how good it looks with those new quad shocks and lift kit. In the next video, you're gonna see me tackle the rear suspension on this thing and bolt up some brand new leaf springs. But until then, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on all the latest progress with my Bronco, and I'll see you guys next time.